Okay, so continuing with a third video here that'll show some really useful CSS functions that our book doesn't cover. Well, our book mentioned the calc one, but they mentioned it once and never brought it up again in any homework or examples or any. They never used it in examples or anything. It's just in one sentence. So they didn't really mention it. They don't mention variables at all. Those are really useful. That was the first and second videos. So the third one here, another really useful function to remind you what the page looks like. So we have a header, some paragraphs, and then a footer. Not much going on there. But a really useful CSS function is we can actually write onto our document from here. So maybe I'll add it on the header. So on the H2, let's go to the H2 and maybe the pseudo after. So we'll put something, so we're looking at stuff after the H2 element, and we have this content property. And then we just pass in a string. I don't know, hello again. I'm not feeling very creative as I make these videos. So when I save that and open this, notice we get something thrown in right after that H2 element. If I view page source, we don't see that extra set of words. That's purely coming from the style. So we can add text from the CSS. And you're probably wondering pretty quick what happens if we add a paragraph tag in there. Well, best way to figure it out is just add that and check. So notice that it does send that string explicitly. So we can't add elements to be styled. But if we have some words that we need to add, I'll add a bunch of spaces this time. Hello again from the CSS. Save that. So once again, it skipped the spacing. So you can try different things again. Try with different things with it, but the big thing is the content. Hello from the CSS, ... And then, so if we change it from after to before, reload the page, probably no surprises there. And if we were to just directly put that in the content, notice nothing happens if it's in the element itself. It does have to go to a pseudo element and really the before and after pseudo elements. So I'll put it before, and there's a lot of different places. We're going to see a counter soon. That's one of the odds and ends, not going to show up today. But if you're like counting out paragraphs, you can have CSS count things for you. We'll see that soon, so that can be useful to throw that counter number on there. One of the most useful spots for that is when we have something like this. I'll add another paragraph here. Paragraph class equals regular. And this one, we'll add a link to maybe YouTube. https://youtube.com. And we'll say watch videos here /A/B. So when we open the page now, we have this nice little link that we can click on, and it'll go to YouTube. And well, have we seen this yet? Target equals underscore blank. I don't think we've seen that. Target underscore blank. There's actually 3 properties we can put there, but one of them doesn't do anything anymore. That'll open. That's how we open it in a new tab. So that gets us to YouTube. Watch some videos. But something you probably encountered before with links like this is if we hit Control B, when we print it out, all we get is the link. And you may have seen that like in doing research for an essay or something. You print out the page and then there's a link that the paragraph surrounding it indicates that that link clearly has the absolute best information you'll ever find for your research essay, but all you see are the words that show and you can't find what the URL is. The content tag is incredibly useful for that. Do have to add a little bit extra in here, so I'm going to come down to the bottom. Yeah, I'll come down to the bottom and add a media query. So add media print. So whenever it's printed on that regular paragraph, if there's an anchor tag in that regular paragraph, I'm going to do the after property and set the content to a string, but I want something very specific. So I'm going to open that and then type attr href, and then I'll add another parenthesis on at the end as part of a string. So concatenation here, if we're calling other functions, which we haven't really talked about this one yet, concatenation is just putting them next to each other. So I'm going to put some parentheses on there. And then in between, I'm going to ask for the hyperlink reference attribute from the tag we're looking at and just print that right afterwards. That's where the content is incredibly useful, because then if we open the page, everything still looks the same, but when we print it, notice that, whoops, notice it actually prints the URL afterwards. That is incredibly useful, something you probably want to include in your pages anytime you have a link, and put some nice text instead of the URL there. Add that attribute afterwards so that if somebody hits print for the page, they can see where the link goes. That's just being nice to your users, and y'all have probably encountered that before, but it's just the content attribute, and then we pass in a string, and we can also ask for any of the attributes from our thing. So if you wanted to print the height and width of a picture, attribute width, attribute height from the IMG tag, and you can get that right from the CSS. But the content attribute can be very, very useful to just add some words to the page. And that brings us up to 8 minutes. So that's 3 very useful things, either not covered or barely mentioned in our textbook, that I would recommend playing around with and seeing where you can work them into sites and get some practice with those, because they will be incredibly useful. And this last one, adding the URL after a link in the when it's printed onto paper, is just a really, really nice thing to do to anybody that might ever print your page. So that'll give you a couple things to play around with. As always, it's an active subject we learn by doing. So see if you can work that into some of your projects or homework somewhere. And I'll see y'all on Wednesday, and we'll look at JavaScript and PHP.